live on Facebook.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody, and we apologize for the delay. We had a little technical issues in our COVID-19 world that we live in right now, but I want to welcome everybody to the virtual town hall for the Marion County Superintendent of Schools candidates. I'm Tom James from the Ocala Marion County Chamber and Economic Partnership. The Marion County School Board has narrowed its search to two candidates, Dr. Diane Gullett and Dr. Heath Morrison. Ahead of tonight's forum, the community was asked to submit questions online for the candidates to allow the community members to participate in this whole process here tonight. So tonight's questions will be pulled from that pool of submissions. Each candidate has 30 minutes, and we'll go alphabetically. So we'll begin with Dr. Diane Gullett. Dr. Gullett, welcome, and we'll give you 1 minute to introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I especially appreciate the opportunity to hear what the community's questions are and respond to them, especially in this pandemic that we're all facing. And so really appreciate that we can do this virtually, even if we can't do this face-to-face. So look forward to answering some questions.
All right. Well, these first few topics these are the ones that received the most questions from our online responses. So Dr. Gullett will start in the category of administration. And this question is, what is your philosophy on how long a principal or assistant principal should stay at a school, and if they should be directly involved in classroom instruction? And please cite some examples.
Absolutely. So I believe that there is no real set time. There's no research that says that there's a certain number of years that you click off to do that. It's important that the principals and assistant principals are qualified to do that and they're supported in their work. Had a lot of experience as a principal supervisor and supervising principals one-on-one and coaching them and spending time in the classrooms. I believe that 80 to 90% of the time should be in classrooms, should be engaged in providing authentic feedback, coaching, and support, helping to lead professional learning communities and leading the work of the team. But there is no set time. Where I've seen success is when you've provided the tools and the resources and the coaching to the principals and assistant principals, they're effective. And where they need support, then you provide that additional support, but no set time. But yes, it should be about being in classrooms and supporting the great work of the teachers.
All right, in the area of teachers, what does professional development for teachers and paraprofessionals look like?
Thank you. So professional development is about professional learning. It should be authentic. It should be engaging. It should be absolutely matched with need. What we see we need for students for support, but also the need of the professional, of the teacher and the paraprofessional. So, and I think there needs to be some choice in that. So professional development is not something that's done to you. It should be something that you feel it's valuable and it's high quality. And so it's important that you balance those pieces, but strategically aligned to the need both of those the students that we serve, but also for the professional. Both of those are critically important. But job embedded, highly engaging, authentic, and there should be some follow through.
All right. Regarding morale, how will you reestablish trust and cohesiveness between the district and its teachers?
Thank you. Well, everything starts with trust. I think that when people get to know who you are as a leader and as your superintendent, I would be highly engaged with all the stakeholders. I would be I'm a great listener, so I would be engaged with what that work is, provide feedback, and be very approachable in that work. And I think trust comes from doing what you say you're going to do and doing the work and making the decisions for the right reasons, for the right purpose, and supporting those that you serve. I'm a servant leader. And so I think the trust comes from the work day in and day out, not necessarily some of the big things, but in the little things, little decisions, and how you spend your time and with whom you spend your time to build that trust. I think that's absolutely critical. And as that trust improves, we better retain our teachers to stay because they feel supported. And it entices others to come because they want to work in a climate that's professional and supportive.
Leadership. Please describe your plan for creating a unified district vision, and how will you communicate this plan to stakeholders?
Absolutely. So leadership is the cornerstone of the work. It's important to get feedback from all stakeholders. So leadership, I would anticipate, would be a key part of the district vision moving forward with the next strategic plan as we get stakeholder input. What does that look like? What are we looking for in our leaders? What does high quality leadership look like? What does that sound like? What do we need? And so we would develop that collaboratively. But it's important to get the right people in the right seats. And again, I said this the other day, people work for people. And so you need to be able to hire and have leaders. And I say leaders, principals, leaders in departments, but I also believe that teachers are leaders. And so we need to have the right people in the right seats, and we need to support them to do the right work.
In the area of community, our superintendent is expected to serve in vital roles on local boards. Cite some specific examples of your community leadership as the school district's representative in other districts, and when and how you've chosen not to serve in those roles, if applicable.
Okay, great, thank you. Community is really important to me, always has been my entire career, professionally, but also personally. I have spent a lot of time being very involved in the community, both in Florida and Nevada. I currently serve on the American Heart Association board and working with our medical personnel to improve the quality of support to education in the community at large. I've also served in roles at Junior League for decades in 3 different locations, and in Florida and Nevada, and served on the board. I think giving to the community, because you are not just an external leader and a figurehead. You need to be side by side with the community and be deeply involved, because then you know what the needs are and you know what they stand for. So I've been very involved with, as I said, Junior League, but also I've been involved with groups like Family Promise, Give Kids the World, because it's about students, and getting closest to the needs of students is a passion of mine. And I would continue to do that. But I think being really involved in the community is a critical part of being the education leader too. You know who they are, you know the families and the needs of the business community and the needs of the students.
All right, the next question is centered around disabilities. What's your firsthand knowledge of special education? And if selected as the next superintendent, how do you plan on restoring the necessary funding to be in compliance with all individual education plans, IEPs?
Very good. So special education, I've had experience as a teacher with special education, taught students with IEPs. I've had experience as a principal and a supervisor supporting the needs of all students. And so I'm deeply passionate about making sure not only do our students have the resources they need in terms of instruction and curriculum and other resources, but the funding needs to follow the needs of the students. We have a right and responsibility in public education to be sure that the funding meets the needs of our students. And for a lot of our students in special education, it's been important to make sure that that's why there's a weighted funding formula, that we're providing extra resources so that education is equitable. But for IEP specifically, what's critically important, and will continue to be, I think, for many years to come, is that we have a tight alignment and tight compliance over what we're doing and how we're doing it, to ensure that we get all the dollars that our students need. And so you have to make sure that you have, again, the right people and the right seats, tight monitoring in place, and make sure that you're providing the assurances that everything is done appropriately and in full compliance to make sure that our students' needs are being met. That's critical.
Okay. Regarding CTE, arts, and safety, in 2018, the community overwhelmingly renewed a 1 mil tax that is dedicated predominantly for career and technical education, arts education, and school safety. So what's your opinion on the importance of the first two, and what does school safety look like to you?
Great. So spent a lot of time with CTE pathways. CTE is a critical part of public education because it provides an opportunity for students to leave and graduate from high school ready to go into the workforce. It's important to engage, and I've done a lot of work with engaging the community with apprenticeships and internships, providing certification. So you can do both, and we should do both. My vision with CTE is to bring that even into the middle school, and we start earlier. I actually think it's a K-12 issue, and so we start earlier, even starting to expose students in elementary, but even providing pathways as early as middle school. So absolutely essential. This is our future. College and career ready. The arts I'm very, very passionate about. I've actually taught arts and education for a number of years at the college level. As a principal, I always made sure that our arts program was protected. It's often the first place that gets cut in education. When the money is tight, those are the first programs to go, and they shouldn't be. Our students need to be able to be engaged and obtain those skills, places of high interest. And we know, research shows us that students that are engaged in the arts do better academically. So it's a well-rounded approach, well-rounded whole child approach. And I have always in my career protected those programs, never cut them. And in all ability, I would make sure to do that, to protect those.
All right. Charter schools, how do you see the relationship between the district and charter schools, particularly with regard to oversight?
Our role as a district is to provide quality assurance. That is our role. I believe in a parent's right to choose, and that we need to have choices, what's best for all students, all needs, and all abilities. And so our primary role is quality assurance. We have to make sure that that regardless of where they go to school, I think charters provide a vital role in our community. They provide specialized programming and support. And just by making sure as a district, we collectively, superintendent with the board, make sure that they're high quality for every child, then it's great because then we have those options for all students, every student.
All right. Regarding diversity, our district is very diverse ethnically and racially, as well as urban and rural. How will you help all students succeed?
Right. So I've had experience with urban, suburban, and rural communities, taught and led, and in highly diverse communities. I've led bilingual center school, and I've worked in high minority populations a large part of my career. And so it's really important to understand where people are coming from. It's important to not only look at student data, know what the student needs are, but look what the community needs are, and build the gap, build the bridge to make sure that we're meeting them where they are. Often what we have found sometimes in some of our most diverse settings is that we have not provided equitable instruction in terms of access to resources. They as well as other communities need the most qualified teachers in front of them and the most qualified leaders. And so it's about equity and access to make sure that regardless of where a child sits, what school, what community, that they're afforded the same high quality instruction. So had a lot of experience with that. I actually even taught another college course that I taught for 12 years. I taught teaching diverse populations at the college level, one of the required courses for teachers, because I had experience with it and was helping to guide and shape what this should and could look like for our diverse populations.
In the area of keeping talent, we are in a very severe shortage nationwide, teacher shortage, of course. What would you do to bring teachers to our county, and how would you work to retain them?
Great, absolutely. It is a national issue. It's a challenge. It's a real challenge. I think recruitment starts with retention, without question. That means we're creating a professional environment. We're recognizing the amazing work that's happening in Marion County. We're supporting our teachers and their work. and there are no surprises. And so it starts with retention, recognizing and rewarding. And I think then it helps the recruitment. But we have to also work very closely and very innovatively and collaboratively with our post-secondary institutions to make sure that we're reaching the students out there that want to come work with us and show them what we can provide to them. It's a market that's very competitive, obviously. And so we have to make sure that we are able to compete and provide all that they need, including professional learning, including the resources, and get to know who we are and what we're about. But it starts with building that trust, and then the word gets out, and they want to be a Marion more than they want to be anywhere else in the state of Florida.
All right. Regarding relationships, it is imperative that our superintendent be able to champion the needs of Marion County's students and teachers with the school board, state and local government, local colleges, and the Public Education Foundation. Can you share any experiences that you have had dealing with these important partners as a deputy superintendent or superintendent?
Absolutely. So being asked to lead the education for 2/3 of students in the state of Nevada, been intimately involved with this. We serve 320,000 students in Clark County, and it's been critical to build partnerships, work very closely with the Public Ed Foundation in Clark County. They are true partners in providing support and resources that we would not be able to provide on our own. We work with, I've done agreements with our post-secondary institutions. I meet regularly with our colleges, and we have taken our leadership teams and worked together to work on some innovative processes to help provide support. We brought in experts in the field to help bring in some training. They are able to provide access to high quality curriculum that we would not be able to afford to do. And so it's really important to continue to work with them. I served on the board for the UF Lastinger Center for Learning in Gainesville. So I work really closely with, even at that level, how do we try to innovate and incubate to provide more resources to our district. And I would continue to utilize those types of partnerships and leverage that. And right here in Marion, we have a phenomenal public ed foundation that I think is ready to continue to strengthen that partnership to help our schools.
All right. In the area of technology, the sudden shift to online learning has certainly thrown a spotlight on the technologies that school systems deploy, both hardware and software. What is your vision for technology, both inside and outside the walls of the schools? Absolutely.
It's our future. It's our future. And as you said, we've been thrown into this. It has exposed inequities in a lot of ways. I'm working with this daily. How do we provide equitable access to devices? But not just that, which is this is going to be one of the critical pieces we face right now in education for our future. But we also have to provide training, not only a digital master plan, which I did a lot of work with, and I was on the committee for that in Orange County Public Schools in Orlando, but also provide training for our staff. Here's how you can use these devices. Here are some resources to teach it, and allow them to be creative and innovative in their work. So you have to do both. You have to work on the technical aspect of deploying and providing the resources, but you also have to really fully invest in the opportunities for professional learning around how to use a device and then how to use devices for instruction. And those are two different separate components. And I absolutely think this is, again, going to be essential. And it needs to be done rather quickly, but it needs to be comprehensively done with the stakeholders involved, because teachers know what works for them, principals know what works for them. So critical next steps, absolutely.
All right. Regarding curriculum, what specific practices would you put into place to support professional learning, to accelerate student improvement through the use of high quality instructional materials?
Right. Well, curriculum is an essential piece of curriculum instruction and assessment. You can have high impact instructional strategies, but if you don't have if the teachers and leaders are not equipped with high quality curriculum, it's really hard to meet the needs of all students. So curriculum is really important. Again, access, providing resources closest to the schools, closest to the classroom, to make sure that they have the tools they need to differentiate instruction is critical. And again, providing professional learning. When I was a principal supervisor in Orange County, one of the things I'm most proud of there is that I created facilitated learning cycles, which I presented on nationally. And what it did is it brought those pieces together, brought the high quality curriculum together, and led that work in a hands-on, job-embedded way to examine what decisions do we make that are right for students in the classroom, and how do we align the tools to do that. And so you have to do that. You have to put funding behind it, you have to put your time behind it, and your expertise behind it.
All right, the next question is centered around student behavior. Disruptive behavior obviously impacts other students' learning as much as the teaching of the material itself. What discipline tools should teachers be empowered with to eliminate disruptive actions by students? And do you support permanently removing disruptive students?
Okay, very good. So a few parts there. I think we start with making sure that there's a comprehensive code of student conduct in place, because sometimes we have those, and we have to make sure that they are actually age appropriate and coherent, and that they're clear, they're clearly defined, and everyone knows what it means. So we have to have a vision and a code of student conduct that's very, very clearly articulated with students in mind. But we have a right and responsibility to make sure that we're providing a safe learning and working environment for students and for the employees. So it's important that we are preventive in nature, and if we put these tools in place and we educate and provide training and we communicate what the expectations are, I think that naturally tends to reduce some of the discipline. But we also are not afraid to hold there to be some accountability. When there are severe behaviors, there needs to be accountability for those. You asked me about permanent removal. That's always the last step. I think just like we as adults, we need to afford students to make better choices, and we have the responsibility to coach them and provide them support and tools with social emotional learning and other resources in the community to help them. So that's the last resort, because we're public education, but we need to do all those other things and get those right. But we do need to make sure that all students and employees have the right to that safe environment. That's critical, and there needs to be some accountability when those poor decisions come and they're dangerous. Then we can't afford to have dangerous students in our schools.
In the area of funding, Dr. Gullett, what improvement have you had in budget development and ongoing fiscal management? Give some concrete examples when possible concerning such areas as the budget process, multi-year fiscal planning, and budget development.
Great. We can't do our work without funding. It's always one of the favorite questions, right? So in Nevada, we had a funding formula here. Again, remind you that we are 2/3 of the state. We are the majority. We educate the majority of the state of students. And the funding formula was last done in 1963. Very outdated. We have different populations that we serve in our country now in public education, and that needed to change. And the money needs to follow the needs of the students, our special ed students and our students, second language learners, and just high poverty areas. So the funding needed to be to change. So I was part of that team that worked closely with our state, our Nevada Department of Education, our legislatures, in our wonderful community to rally to update that. And I'm pleased to say that that's been updated, and we have a new funding formula coming. So that was critical for the state of Nevada. The other experience I've had is really being very closely in touch with the needs of schools. I think funding, and I've done this here as well as a deputy superintendent, moving funding closest to the classroom, taking it out of central office, still being able to provide the services and support, but the money needs to go closest to the students and it needs to go closest to the classroom. So I made some changes with that, but I also then led in Florida as a principal supervisor. I led principals and assistant principals through budget cycles. So making sure that the decisions that they were making were aligned to the needs of the school and that they could have access to all of the high quality grants and other funding streams. So when you look at SAI dollars and other dollars in the state of Florida, that they were maximizing the funding streams available to them. So you protect what you need to do to protect the students. And so I would help them facilitate and navigate budgets.
Okay. In the area of kindergarten, we have had great success in Marion County moving away from a traditional kindergarten classroom model back to a developmentally appropriate one with play-based learning. Would you continue to support this model, one that also employs a full-time paraprofessional in each classroom?
Okay, very good. So I'm a former elementary school teacher. I actually started my career in first grade, which is very similar now to the kindergarten curriculum. I believe that we need to provide high quality instruction, but we need to understand the developmental nature of our students. And so you need to developmental work is really critical in making decisions for students, especially in the early grades. And so I support absolutely highly engaging, play-by-play, side-by-side, all of those types of authentic learning and opportunities in the classroom. But you still make sure that you're exposing the students to the standards that they need to be prepared for first grade. And so the teachers who understand what where they are developmentally, because all students are at different places, even within a certain age, that you're differentiating that, but you're providing both. You're providing high quality, rigorous instruction, but you're doing it that's developmentally appropriate at that age for those students. Yes.
All right, we are near the end of our time, so just want to give you the opportunity for some brief closing remarks.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again. It's really been an honor to spend time with you this evening. I'm sorry that we're not able to do this face to face. So that would be my preference, but we're all in this together. So you will not find a more dedicated and collaborative leader than I am. And I chose Marion County for a reason. So this is the only district I've applied to, and I stand ready to lead it and be fully committed to not only the education stakeholders within the district, but all of the community. And I'm in it for the long haul. I'm all in, and I stand ready, and I think I'm going to help this community to heal. And through our work together with the board, and again, all the wonderful partners in the community, we will put Marion back on the map as being the shining star of the state. And thank you for your time.
All right, we want to thank Dr. Diane Gullett for participating, and also the Marion County School Board for allowing us to host this town hall. We're going to take a quick break and then come back. Up next, we have Dr. Heath Morrison. Thank you. All right, welcome back, everybody, and thank you for joining us for the virtual town hall for the Marion County Superintendent of Schools candidates. I'm Tom James at the CEP. It is now time to meet our second candidate, Dr. Heath Morrison. Once again, ahead of tonight's forum, the community was asked to submit questions for all of these candidates to allow community members to participate in the process. Now, these questions were pulled from a pool of submissions. So it's time to meet our second candidate, Dr. Heath Morrison. You'll have 30 minutes. Dr. Morrison, welcome, and you have 1 minute to introduce yourself.
Well, Tom, thank you very much, and thanks to the CEP for hosting this forum tonight. One of the many things that's so absolutely intriguing about Marion County is the partnership between the schools and the forum and the CEP. And so, again, thanks for hosting tonight. I am excited about being able to share with the citizens and stakeholders in Marion County about my experience as a teacher, principal, superintendent, now in the business sector. Believe it, the heart of being a superintendent is about being a servant leader. And we are facing one of the greatest challenges of our time right now with the COVID-19 virus. And so it's a time when great service is going to be needed. And my heart goes out to the Marion County community as it does our entire country right now.
All right, Dr. Heath Morrison. Now, these first few topics received the most questions from our online responses. So we'll start regarding administration. What is your philosophy on how long a principal or assistant principal should stay at a school, and if they should be directly involved in classroom instruction? And please cite examples.
Yeah, so let me start off with principals. I don't think that there's a time limit for how long a principal should stay at a school. I've talked to a lot of individuals within Marion County who have expressed concern about how much principal movement there's been. You know, Tom, I have a very simple proposition that I hold myself to as a leader, and I try not to outdone myself. So if you've got a principal in a school that's doing great work, working collaboratively with the teachers, and the community's happy, why would you want to move that principal? Assistant principals are a little bit different. Assistant principals probably more often than not want to be a principal. So after 3 or 4 years, even if they're doing good work, giving them the opportunity to move around to different schools to see have different experiences, perhaps going elementary, middle, high school. I think that's just good preparation for them to be a principal. And the school districts that I have the honor of leading, we've actually worked on our principal selection process, making sure that teachers, community members have input into the selection of the principal. So again, as long as they're doing good work, why would we move them? For principals, it's not, should they be in the classroom? Principals should absolutely want to be the lead learner, being in the classroom, supporting the teachers, helping instruction, making sure they're meeting the needs of students. There's a lot of things that can pull your attention, but your number one focus as a great principal is wanting to be a great lead learner.
All right. Now, regarding teachers, what does professional development for teachers and paraprofessionals look like for you?
Yeah, Tom, let me start off what I think it doesn't look like. It's not same for all. It's not one and done. Really good professional development has some aspects that I think are really important. First of all, it's job embedded. Do our teachers in Marion County really feel that this professional development is going to help me do my important job? That's number one. Number two, is it ongoing? If it's just one time, if it's just one presentation or one guest speaker, then probably more often than not, it's not going to be really utilized by the teacher or the support staff or the principal. And then, I think another important portion of that is choice. We believe in personalized learning for students. Well, why would we not also respect our teachers to give them that same choice? In the school districts I've led, we've created professional learning communities. We've asked our teachers, our principals, our support staff, what's the training that you need? We've invested in that. We've created career lattices so that teachers who want career growth, but maybe don't want to be an administrator, can actually spend some time outside of the classroom providing that professional learning opportunity and professional development. Teachers learn best when they learn from each other. And so, professional development that is ongoing, that's job embedded, that has choice, and that we evaluate it. A lot of times we provide professional development, we do a survey monkey, 90% of the teachers say we love it, the superintendent tells the board, it was great, but then it's not used. So was it good training? Is it being used? And at the end of the day, the hallmark of it is, does it create better learning opportunities for our students?
All right. In the area of morale, how will you reestablish trust and cohesiveness between the district and its teachers?
One of the things, Tom, that's been an amazing part of this opportunity to look at this position of superintendent of schools in Marion County is the fantastic conversations I've had with current educators in Marion County, former educators, business leaders, community leaders, faith-based leaders. And I think one of the things that's very concerning is the number of teachers who have left principals who have left to go to other districts in Florida. And so as I've tried to just ask the questions why, and I keep hearing a lot around morale. And so I think what's going to be really important is that this opportunity between the board being able to select the superintendent, having that cohesion, that building of a strong relationship between the board and superintendent creates a sense of strength and competence and calmness. And organizations, if that happens at the top of the organization, it flows all the way through. One of the things I've always believed as being a superintendent is to be present and to be engaged and to be an active listener, to be in schools often, to greet our teachers and educators, support staff and principals, and deeply listen. I don't just drop into schools for a 15, 20-minute visit. When I go there to be there for a lengthy period of time. And there's a book, Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And there's a habit of seek first to understand, then to be understood. People and our educators feel validated and they feel that they are part of the system when they are heard and that when we are actively listening. I think it's really important to do surveys, to have climate surveys where our teachers are able to tell us, what's the current state of the climate? To publish those so that our teachers do feel like they've been listened to. And as superintendent, my meeting with the union leaders, the representative groups, so that we're actively meeting, we're actively talking about what has to happen to move our district forward. And then in both districts I led, we created a memorandum of understanding around a culture of respect. And we talked about what respect looks like. We talked about what to do if anyone feels like they've not been treated respectfully. And all those things, along with celebrating the good work of our teachers, has helped build morale.
All right. The next question is centered around leadership. And if you would please describe your plan for creating a unified district vision and how you will communicate this plan to stakeholders.
I've been so fortunate to have 2 opportunities to serve as superintendent of large school districts. And I never came into those school districts with the plan. I came in with a very clearly articulated entry plan, and it shared my commitment to listen, to engage with our board, our teachers, our principals, our support staff, our parents, our business leaders, our faith-based community, and to constantly, through the first 30, 60, 90 days, actively share what I'm hearing, make sure it's being socialized so individuals think I've heard it correctly. And then to take at the end of that 90 days, that entry plan, to share with the community what I've learned, what our school district is doing really well, where our constituents think it could be better. And then the important work begins, because then we put together committees and they're multi-representative, and they've got stakeholders, employees, business leaders, community leaders, parents, all working together to figure out if these are the things that are strong, how do we keep them strong? If these are the things that need to be addressed, how do we address them? And then to look at it with our budget so that we really move the work forward. And the districts I've led, we've been able to rapidly increase student achievement, to be able to engender a great deal of public trust. Our last, the last bond that we went out with in my last school district passed at 88%. And then keep our students and staff safe. All those core commitments are a strategic plan. So really unifying around that opportunity to listen and learn, to talk where we need to go from our school district where it is to where it needs to be. Those are things I've done and would welcome that opportunity to do it in Marion County Public Schools.
All right. Next question is centered around community. And our superintendent is expected to serve in vital roles on local boards. If you could cite specific examples of your community leadership as the school district's representative in other districts, and when and how you've chosen not to serve in those roles, if applicable.
For the superintendent to serve as a community leader. And that's what was exciting for me in Reno, Nevada, and exciting for me in Charlotte, Mecklenburg, North Carolina. And so some of the different things that I was able to serve on in those districts. Number one, the economic development, Chamber of Commerce, anything that was around economic development, I thought it was incredibly important for me as superintendent to serve on. And want to compliment Marion County because in those districts there are many different groups that represented our economic development interests, and you have unified with the CEP in Marion County, so absolutely being a part of that. That means not coming with my hands outstretched to say the school district needs this, but start off with the question, how can the school district help with the important idea of how to keep and attract jobs in Marion? Was a big part of what I did in Reno and Charlotte. And anytime that we're trying to attract new businesses, to be there to talk about what the school district is doing and how we can create great programs or build on our existing programs, to be a vibrant part of that. I served on a number of different boards: the United Way, Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, the Children's Cabinet. I think those were all incredibly important. And, one that was really dear to my heart was communities in school, because communities in school really was about how do you look at all the different services that the community has, how can you align them to really get to our students who are most vulnerable, that have the greatest needs, and bring those resources to keep students engaged, keep them in school, and help them be very successful. The only time I ever was not willing to say yes was just because there were so many different boards, but then I made sure that the cabinet that reported to me also got a chance to be part of that. And again, it's just really important for the school district to be represented in all facets of the community.
Right, thank you. Regarding disabilities, what is your firsthand knowledge of special education? And if selected as the next superintendent, how do you plan on restoring the necessary funding to be in compliance with all individual education plans, IEPs?
Yeah, one of the really wonderful opportunities I had as a teacher was to receive special education training, especially how to teach in inclusive classrooms. I actually went through that training at the same time as I was being trained to teach advanced placement. And what I quickly found as I was teaching AP courses and students being served with an IEP in an inclusive classroom was really the same training and the same expectations. And an IEP is really about meeting the student where they are, providing a program to get them to where they need to be. The thing about an IEP is it is the law. There is no should we, it is we must. And so I find that it's best in working with our students who have an IEP and leading our schools and our school district to bear in mind a couple things. Number one, it has to be resourced that way. So it's not a, can we budget for that? We have to budget. Again, it's the law. Number two, in the development of an IEP, actively involving the parents, not doing it after the fact, not putting it in front of the parents and basically forcing them to sign the document, but actively working with the parent every step of the way to make sure that they are a huge advocate for the educational needs of their child. And then at the end of the day, it's about teaching that student in the least restrictive environment. So many school districts will cluster their students in a self-contained program, and wherever possible, we're supposed to meet the student in an inclusive mainstream classroom. But that means training for the special education teacher, the regular education teacher, staffing it with paraprofessionals, and really doing that training commitment. At the end of the day, I also believe that every student deserves some kind of personalized plan of progress. In the district that I just left in Charlotte-Mecklenburg, when one of our big focuses was a personalized plan of progress for every student, built off of the components of what a quality IEP is. So it's important, it's the law, it has to be funded. One of the schools I would really love to visit, if selected as superintendent, right off the bat is Hillcrest, and see the good work that's happening there. It's important and it has to happen.
Right. In the area of CTE, arts and safety, in 2018, the community overwhelmingly renewed a $1 mil tax that was dedicated predominantly for career and technical education, arts education, and school safety. What's your opinion on the importance of the first two, and what does school safety look like to you?
Let me start off with school safety, only because there's three things I know a community expects of every superintendent. There's many, but there's three predominantly. Number one, can you help lead collaborative efforts to raise student achievement? Number two, can you engender public trust and confidence? And number three, will you do everything that it needs to happen to keep our students and staff safe? It's the key priority. And it was prior to COVID-19. COVID-19 is going to change a lot of the rules, and there's a lot of things that the superintendent's going to have to work with county and state officials to make sure that when students return to the classroom, students and staff are safe. How are we going to account for lost learning? What do the safety requirements look like getting to school, being at school? There's a lot that has to happen, and it has to be happening right now. With CTE and the arts, they are such incredibly important programs for students. And one of the things I noticed is not only did that millage pass, but I think it passed at 77%, which is just a testimony to how they're valued, those programs, by the community in Marion County. So with the arts, I can barely draw a decent stick figure, I promise you, but I have huge respect for the arts. There are science, technology, and math programs that are really important for college and career readiness. But in my 2 districts that we created programs around those areas, we added arts and made it a STEAM education, because when you think about what students need for the future, they need to be collaborators, critical thinking, problem solving, collaborative. All those skills are best taught through the arts. CTE, I have taken as a great source of pride the work that we've done in the districts I've led around CTE, around programs such as supply chains management, manufacturing, global logistics, robotics, some of the same programs that are right there in Marion County Public Schools. They're important to make sure we keep that commitment that we're having our students walk across the stage and not only get a diploma, but a diploma that really says they're ready for college or high skilled career. It is really amazing the career academies that Marion County has, and keeping them strong and vibrant is something that would be very important to me.
Right. Charter schools next. How do you see the relationship between the district and charter schools, particularly with regard to oversight?
So I think, first of all, early on as charter schools started to come very popular across the country, I was one of the first large district superintendents that actually wasn't in opposition of them. I celebrate the idea of choice. I celebrate the idea that while we hope every parent chooses their local neighborhood school, we have to earn that business. And if a parent feels like there's a better educational opportunity, then hopefully we can provide it right within Marion County Public Schools. But the charters allow for that opportunity for choice and focus as well. I think it's best when the local school district works collaboratively with the charter schools. When I was superintendent in Reno, we actually did the authorization for the charter schools. So not only did I want to work collaboratively, we had a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that the programming for those charter schools was strong and compliant with state law. When I went to Charlotte, the district actually didn't have any direct responsibilities for charters. So one of the first things I did was to reach out to the charters and say, I want to meet. I want to talk about how we can collaborate. I want to see how we can do what's best for the students within our community. It took a little bit of time for trust because they'd never been asked to work directly with the public school system. But working together, learning from each other, I think we provided better opportunities for parents and students. And so I'm a big believer of choice.
Okay, the next question centers around diversity. And our district is very diverse, both ethnically and racially, as well as urban and rural. How will you help all students succeed?
If you're not an advocate, if it's not in your heart with passion to serve every student, you should not be vying to be considered for a superintendent of schools, let alone superintendent of Marion County. I have only had the honor and privilege of serving in diverse schools. The 2 schools I led as a principal, the school districts I've led as a superintendent have been incredibly diverse, racially, socially, economically, students with a special needs in an IEP or language. Some of my school districts have had schools as small as 67 kids because they were in a very rural community or even on an Indian reservation. So here's what I know. Any school district in its vision and mission statement is going to speak about equity. But is that really the core values of the district, or are those just words? They need to be the absolute core value of the district. How is that shown? Number one, what's the training that we're doing for our educators to understand diverse populations, to embrace cultural proficiency and competency? How do we make sure our teachers, principals, and support staff recognize the differences that make us stronger to academically provide programming for all of our students? Number two, do we differentiate funding to make sure that for those students who come to us with less, they don't get less at school? Across the country, so many students in poverty, so many students with more need get less at school with programming, with rigor, That can't be. We have to give our kids who come to school with less more at school. 3, do we look at the data honestly and authentically? When we look at the data, it tells a story of many of our students of color, underrepresented in advanced placement courses, underrepresented in honors or career technology courses that get them a highly skilled career or college ready, and overrepresented in special education courses, overrepresented in suspensions. We have to address that. We have to be honest about it, and then come together with plans that really will help us move our work forward. And then the final area I'd say there's a lot that could be said is around diversifying our workforce. We have to make sure that as best we can, always hiring the best principals, teachers, support staff, district leaders, that while the standard is always to hire the best individuals who are most highly qualified, to diversify our workforce so that students see a reflection of the educators with the diversity of our student population. I've done that in 2 districts, and that's a core commitment.
The next question topic centers around keeping talent. We are in a severe teacher shortage nationwide. What would you do to bring teachers to our county, and how would you retain them?
Well, if selected, I hope we can bring back some of the great teachers that we've lost and principals. I think the first way I always address that, and we are so humbled and honored by watching our teachers, we sometimes forget it's a job. And so the number one thing is, are we making sure that we're advocating to make sure that teacher pay is as high as it can be? And so I know that there's a lot of excitement in Florida with the passage of the budget with increased teacher salaries. And that's so important. It's critical. But that's one aspect of what attracts and keeps teachers in a community and a state. More often than not, teachers leave for other reasons. 50% of teachers across the country leave the profession after 5 years. Some of the reasons they leave, they feel disrespected. They don't feel their evaluations and the people evaluating them actually help them with professional growth. They don't see career advancement. And so all these things, and then the climate is not conducive to them wanting to stay. So as we start to look at how do we solve those things, I think about some of the things we've done in my prior districts. We did, in fact, create professional development programs with Teacher Voice, as I've spoken about before. We created collaboratively with our teachers career lattices. So what are things that would give you career advancement? What are ways that you can grow in your profession but not have to leave the classroom or not leave the classroom full time? We worked actively to talk about our evaluation systems and those evaluating, because teachers don't want to just be told, hey, Tom, you did a good job today, pat on the back. They want to know what they can do to build their craft and continue to get better and better. Do we celebrate our teachers through things like nationally board certified certification and make sure that that's an investment in our teachers? I'm a huge believer in celebrating their great work. One of the things I took particular pride in my last district, we had what we called a convocation, and that's how we started off the school year. We brought every educator, every principal, every support staff member together in a very large arena. We had our business leaders, state officials, and there was just a celebration of their great work. I was once asked, what would you like to do? I would love to make teaching the iconic profession of our time, and why can't we do that in Marion County?
All right, the next topic we're going to discuss are relationships. And it is imperative that our superintendent be able to champion the needs of Marion County's students and teachers with the school board, state and local government, local colleges, and the Public Education Foundation. Can you share any experiences that you have had dealing with these important partners as a deputy superintendent or a superintendent?
Leading some of the largest school districts in the country, some of the largest school districts in the states that I led, you are actively and absolutely expected to be present and to be a vibrant part of working with state legislators, the governor, on everything from the state budget to legislation as it pertains to education. That starts off with the superintendent and the board coming together with a legislative platform. What are those key priorities? The better we align our key priorities in Marion County to the business community, to our higher education institutions, to civic leadership, then we go with a united front. In both Reno and conditions, smart, thoughtful evaluation systems. Trying to not have so many tests that our teachers don't get a time to teach, but that they can actually have the appropriate amount of testing that does the purpose that it needs to and allow them that time to teach. I have absolutely worked very proactively around partnerships with our institutions of higher education. It's critically important. And that's everything from how do we make sure that students enter college prepared and not needing remediation, to helping the development of our professional development and training of our teachers. And then our education foundations, who have such an amazing education foundation in Marion County. When I was superintendent in Reno, Nevada, we didn't have one. We had to develop one. I was very proud of the work that we did with that. In Charlotte, Mecklenburg, we'd had one, but it needed to be reinvigorated. And so working together with our community, working together with some amazing business partners and foundations, we were able to add that component. And again, it was another way not only to add resources and support to our schools, but give us another voice about how to take our district to the next level.
Okay. In the area of technology, the sudden shift to online learning has thrown a spotlight on the technologies that school systems deploy, both hardware and software. What is your vision for technology, both inside and outside the walls of the school?
I am a tremendous advocate for what the power of technology can do. Purposeful technology in the hands of a great teacher can do amazing things. It helps that teacher differentiate instruction. It helps them actually meet the unique learning needs of every student in a way that when it's just one teacher to 25 or 30 students, it's very hard for even the best teacher to differentiate at that level. I will always say there is never going to be a piece of technology that can replace the important work of our teachers. And that's the first thing I will always say. And right now with COVID-19 and schools being shut down, there's a recognition that schools were not prepared for this sort of situation. And there's going to be an expectation if schools ever have to shut down again, that there's going to have to be a better call to action than there's been across our country today. You differentiate between what higher ed is doing, where there's actually still teaching going on. They've been able to convert to online distance learning. There's still credits being attained. Students are moving forward. And there's going to be lost learning across our country. And we have to account for that and be ready the next time. In my last school district, we started our technology focus around personalized learning. We equipped our teachers with technology, but we also honored them and respected them by training. We then made sure that every classroom was wired for the internet, as well as our modular units, and there was 1,000 of those. We also worked with community groups, civic groups, business groups to make sure that we took care of the infrastructure in communities that did not have that access, so that our students most impacted by poverty got a device at school and they were able to access those devices at home. That way we can ensure continuous learning and that opportunity for education to go beyond the classroom. But again, as much as I'm a huge fan of technology, it will never replace our teachers.
Curriculum. What specific practices would you put into place to support professional learning to accelerate student improvement through the use of high quality instructional materials?
You know, I have, that's an interesting question from my time as a teacher and as a superintendent who recommends materials to the board on behalf of our teachers, and now being a president of a company that provides those materials. I think what's critically important is that, again, the focus is the teacher. There is no curriculum, there is no device that is ever going to replace a great teacher. But a curriculum and curricular materials give our teachers tools and access to do their important work. So the first thing that is always important is that those materials are aligned to state standards. There's a lot of accountability. Not aligned with the state standards, and the teachers are teaching. Those materials also have to be rigorous. They have to be culturally relevant. They have to have some sort of ability to assess what the students are learning. Good elementary teachers know you progress monitor every 14 days to make sure you're progressing. I think what's also really important, though, is that teachers have a voice in the selection of the materials. In both districts I've led, we created committees of teachers, principals, parents to review the materials, make sure that they're appropriate for our school district, that they would help us attain the standards set by our district and our state, and that by the time it got to my level as a superintendent, I wasn't saying, hey, we used this in my last district, so we're using it here, but it was our teachers and principals saying, these are the materials that we think that will help us become the best district in Florida.
Okay, thank you. When it comes to student behavior, disruptive behavior impacts other students' learning, of course, as much as the teaching of the material itself. What discipline tools should teachers be empowered with to eliminate disruptive actions by students? And do you support permanently removing disruptive students?
I think it's really important that when we talk about creating a safe and orderly environment in our schools, that school districts have a very structured code of conduct. It should be very clear. It should be made very clear to our students right on day one, and our community. What are the things that we not only expect students to know and be able to do, but what's the civic mindedness and the behavior that we expect of our students? It's critically important, and that be consistent across the district and consistently enforced. At the end of the day, it's a very simple answer. We've got to support our teachers. We cannot let students disrupt the classroom. I think that starts off with, though, how can we get the students not to be disruptive? Most students come to school, they want to learn, they don't want to cause an issue or challenge. So, the first thing is, are we taking care of students' social, emotional learning needs? If they come to school hungry, if they come to school with trauma at their home, then they could be dealing with things that cause issues for them, and then they start to act up. So how do we address those issues? How do we make sure that we don't over-identify certain behaviors that may not be behavioral, but might just be differences in the diversity of the students we're serving, so that we're not, whenever possible, removing a student from the classroom? Do I support the permanent removal of a student? But I want to make sure that in our school district that, again, whenever the teacher needs support, we provide that support. Classroom management is huge to make sure that all students are learning. But if a student is disruptive, then we need to remove them from that classroom. We need to find a different way to service their educational needs, but we can't let one student disrupt the learning for all other students and what the teacher is trying to accomplish.
In the area of funding, what involvement have you had in budget development and ongoing fiscal management? And please give concrete examples when possible concerning such areas as the budget process, multi-year fiscal planning, and budget development.
Okay, Tom, I think you cut out, but I think the question was, what involvement have I had with the development of budgets? So I hope I got that right.
Yes, that's correct.
As superintendent of schools, part of what your primary responsibility is to develop and present a budget for the board for their important consideration. Ultimately, the budget is adopted by the Board of Education. I have led 2 large districts with significant. First of all, is our budget an accurate and authentic accounting of how we're going to move our strategic plan forward? If the budget doesn't fundamentally do the things that we're asking to do to achieve the important results we have to do, it's a flawed document. Number 2, most budgets in the public sector, as they are in the private sector, are about people. So is our budget reflective of keeping and attracting and retaining a high quality workforce? Every budget that I've had the honor and privilege of developing for board consideration, we've gone out to our community early on in the process to make sure they understand how our schools are funded, to make sure that they understand what we are doing in our strategic plan and how we're applying dollars to that. We've asked for their input. We've come back to the board and talked about what we've heard as we develop our priorities for this upcoming year. We share in real time what we're hearing about the state budget, the local budget, the federal budget. And then we go back out with a very specific focus of, this is the budget that we're thinking about, and get more community feedback. Then we come back and ask the board for its consideration, and then really be very transparent about how we're spending those dollars so that the dollars do get to the classroom. I was once asked, what's the best award I've ever been a part of? And they thought I was going to say being selected as National Superintendent of the Year. And yes, I was proud of that. It was actually in Nevada with the work that we did around our budget, where we were nominated and selected as the Nevada Taxpayers Award for Good Governance, for being good fiduciary officers of the taxpayer dollars. That was really incredible. No district had ever been nominated, let alone one. And we were very proud of that.
All right. Well, we are near the end of our time, so this will serve as our final question and your opportunity at some closing remarks. And the final question is in the area of kindergarten. We have had great success in Marion County moving away from a traditional kindergarten classroom model back to a developmentally appropriate one with play-based learning. Would you continue to support this model, one that also employs a full-time paraprofessional in each classroom?
I believe in kindergarten. I believe in kindergarten being the preparation for students to get to that trajectory to read to third grade on proficiency. I believe that you have to have paraprofessionals, teacher aides to make that happen. And yes, I believe it's a balance of making sure that not only do we have academic rigorous standards in our kindergarten classrooms, but there's an element of fun that's socially and emotionally developmentally appropriate. So my final comment is, my answer is yes, yes, and yes. And so I believe you want me to say the final comments. First of all, Tom, thank you to you and again the CEP for hosting tonight. Again, just a wonderful opportunity to share the candidates thinking about education. I am incredibly excited about this opportunity. I have had this really amazing magic carpet ride of a career. I've been a teacher, a principal, superintendent as yourself, say as a superintendent, you ought to, run your school district more like a business. Well, I've now done that. And as much as I've enjoyed my time in the private sector, I've always known that I wanted to come back and serve as a superintendent. It's in my heart. When I told the search firms across the country that I was thinking about coming back, I was very clear. I didn't want a big, large district. I didn't want one of the quote unquote spotlight districts. I wanted a district where fundamentally it was a district where the community cares, where there was investment of the faith-based community, the civic-minded community, business leaders that show that they really want a quality education, and that there be a board of education that really wants to move the district forward. And so when I heard about Marion County, I started doing more and more research. I've talked to over 50 current educators in the district, former educators, people that have lived in the county in their entire lives. And the more I hear, the more I get excited. I want to be the next superintendent of Marion County Public Schools. I believe I have a record that shows that I can get good results around academic achievement, building community trust, and keeping our teachers and parents, teachers and students safe. And again, thank you for this opportunity. Thanks for being able to share. And I wish everyone a great night.
All right, we have reached the end of our allotted time, and Dr. Heath Morrison, thank you so much for joining us and participating. We also want to thank our first candidate, Dr. Diane Gullett. Additionally, the CEP thanks the Marion County School Board for its partnership and its willingness to allow us to host tonight's virtual town hall. From the CEP, I'm Tom James. Be safe, be healthy, and have a good night, everyone.